The release of Chapter 4 is already definitely confirmed, and at the moment Mob Entertainment is conducting various beta tests of the new chapter, and also the gradual updating of Poppy Playtime's merch proves the fact that Mob is not going to forget Smiling Critters, and most likely, in Chapter 4, we will see the continuation of their story. But first things first, on SteamDB website in Poppy Playtime section, there appeared a very interesting leak in which we can see various files with the mysterious name Chapter 4 Beta. Besides the presence of the new game development itself, this leak may lead us to the soon release of the first teaser trailer of Chapter 4, in which we will learn the basis of the story of Chapter 4. At the moment we have a huge number of leaks that can refer us to Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. Let's discuss the most important ones in this video. The first new character I would like to tell you about is Funny Fox. We have never met her before, but she is very similar to Smiling Critters. Initially we meet only her cardboard, from which we learn that she likes to have fun. Apparently that's why she got this name. After listening to her cardboard, we go down to some basement. Later in this location we will meet another character, but you will learn about it later. In this basement we meet already full-fledged Funny Fox, who starts a dialogue with us, but she doesn't seem cheerful anymore. In her voice there are notes of madness. She asks us to release her from the cage, but our character decides not to. Now it's time to talk about one of the most anticipated characters we haven't seen yet, and I'm talking about the very cute dinosaur Bron. Many people were sure that Bron would appear in Chapter 3, because in the first teaser trailer after the severed body of Mommy Longlegs, we were shown Bron's head. But as we already know, the main antagonist of Chapter 3 is not Bron at all, and I'm sure Bron is the most desirable character we've seen so far. And it's probably time to tell us more about this dinosaur, especially since his life story in Playtime Co. is very fascinating and it would be interesting to know how it will affect Bron in the future. In case you don't know, Thomas Clark, a 59-year-old full-time employee of Playtime Co., was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. After receiving the diagnosis, he willingly volunteered to be part of the Bigger Bodies experiment. Scientists placed his organs, eyes, and brain inside a Bron toy in what became known as the 1199 experiment. He was severely disoriented and did not know where he was or what had happened to him. When 1199 was introduced to the other experiments, they immediately realized that he was not an orphan forced to be an experimenter. As a result, Boxy Boo almost completely ate his vocal cords and thyroid gland before the research team intervened to stop the experiments from killing Bron. It took 12 hours of surgery to stabilize Bron's condition. He was then placed in solitary confinement to protect him from further experiments. And now I would like to tell you about one more character, who in my opinion will also play the role of a helper in the fourth part, and the name of this character is Mr. Delight. Yes, you didn't hear it. He is the husband of that crazy Miss Delight from Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. However, unlike her, he will be a positive character, and as far as I know, they will work with the already known Poppy doll. If you ask me who Poppy Playtime fans expect to see more than Bron, I'll tell you a monster called Boxy Boo. After all, he was the one we were shown on that VHS tape The Hour of Joy, and he was among all the monsters we could already see in the game. Therefore, a large number of people believe that his probability of appearance in the game is the most likely among all possible. I propose to dive back into history and learn a little bit more about Boxy Boo. Boxy Boo is referred to in many sources as Experiment 1160 and was created as a result of experiments known as the Bigger Bodies Initiative. So if you didn't know, Boxy Boo was the first successful experiment created under this auspices. Its job was to get rid of low-level employees who, in the opinion of management, knew too much about the experiments conducted at the Playtime Factory theory. The most popular theory is that Boxy Boo will play the role of one of the main antagonists in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. Many believe he will be someone like Catnap, who was literally Prototype's right-hand man. I'm also sure that we will definitely see Boxy Boo in Chapter 4 and that he will definitely have a key role in this game. I think you'll agree with me that the role of a good character doesn't suit Boxy Boo in any way, so it's almost 100% likely that we'll see him as one of the main villains in the next version of the game. Out of my personal preference, I would have been very eager to see DogDay in Chapter 4. After all, it's the one that opened our eyes to Prototype and his sidekick Catnap and told us what kind of creepy things they were doing in Playcare territory. DogDay also appeared for a short period of time and gained a huge fan base, so they won't forgive Mob Entertainment if they don't show their favorite in the new fourth chapter. I think that if he does appear, he will play a small episodic role, but as it was in the third chapter, he will provide us with a lot of useful information that will bring us closer to solving the mystery of Prototype. The developers of Mob Entertainment can add completely new monsters that we have never seen before, as for example in the third chapter they added Miss Delight, and maybe it will be one of the old forgotten characters that we could see in the form of a drawing or a toy. We can only wait for the release of the game trailer of the new part of the game to dispel all our assumptions. I have already mentioned the long-legged family several times. Of all of them, we have seen only Mommy Longlegs, but the rest of the family members in the previous parts of the game we did not have a chance to see. Even though we know that the prototype took Mommy Longlegs' body at the end of Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, I'm sure he's doing it for a reason. Well, Mommy Longlegs isn't the only member of her family. Baby Longlegs may also appear in the new chapter, and considering the fact that we haven't seen him yet, I'm sure his appearance is almost certain. But as what kind of character? Whether he'll be positive or negative is hard to say. On the one hand, his mother died because of us, but there is also a prototype who took her body and who knows what he is doing with it. However, I'm more confident that Baby Longlegs will be on the side of the prototype, because as we know, the prototype is very good at subduing monsters, and it's very easy for a grief-stricken Baby Longlegs to make Baby Longlegs think that we killed his beloved mother. I think if he does appear, we will see him closer to the end of the 4th chapter. And recently I found very interesting leaks that could refer us to one of the scenes of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, and also showed us the face of the prototype that we know since the first part. On the first leak, we were shown a warehouse that will be one of the locations of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, but more importantly, we were shown the body with the already known hand and the side of the prototype's face, and by the looks of it, his body will be huge, but if you think that's it, you're wrong. In the second leak, we can see the full face of the prototype, and judging by the first 2 leaks, we can safely assume that the prototype is not entirely made up of monsters that are taken away. And given the fact that we can clearly see human features, I have a hunch that the prototype is one of Playtime Co.'s employees. On the third leak, we once again realize how huge the prototype will be, and we also finally understand what shape its body will be. But what I am more interested in is some toy on its hand, and most likely it's one of those evil smiling critters toys, namely the Bobby Bear Hug toy. Well, on the 4th leak we see nothing new except that on top of the prototype's body, there is Boxy Boo's body. It is still unknown if this is a real character or just a toy that looks like him, but based on what we know about the prototype, I would venture to guess that it is Boxy Boo. I'd like to tell you about a new hand for our character, which we are very likely to see in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. This hand will be called Tesla Hand, and on the internet, I even found a tutorial on how to use it, so I suggest you figure it out together. The Tesla Hand is a modified green hand that can store 3 electrical charges. In order to charge it, we need to touch the source. We can apply these charges to the Tesla pillar, so when we activate it, we turn on all electrical appliances within a radius of 50 meters. Also in the manual, we are warned that we chose the targets wisely, because if you apply these charges to a person, it can kill him. I think this is a hint that with the help of this hand, we can neutralize monsters. Even if not kill them, at least incapacitate them for a while. Now let's talk about the others. And of course I'm talking about the dash hand. Let's go back to the moments when we need to use the power of our hand to climb up. However, this action is only realized in the vertical plane, which has always seemed strange to me. I'm talking about why the authors still haven't done something similar so that we can move horizontally in the same way. And that's exactly what dash hand will be able to do. I'm sure that such an ingenious solution can help us a lot in speeding up the game, and it is also important to realize that with the help of dash hand, we will be able to move absolutely anywhere. But there is one very important exception. Dash hand will be safe for us only when we see this picture of a red hand with a grabber. And if we just touch a random wall and try to move thanks to dash hand, of course we will do it, but the consequences will be very sad for us. And let's talk about the red slingshot hand. I think you all realize that the main mechanism is based on the principle of a catapult or slingshot. And just like the gun hand, this hand has a certain number of charges, but what it can inflict is green paint from the balls. But it seems to me that it's some kind of acid that acts on living flesh. And one of the most interesting to me is the fire hand. If you look closely, you will notice that this hand contains a huge amount of small details. It is important to note that the main feature of this hand is that it can shoot fire. Remember the fragment where we paralyze Catnap with an electric charge, and if you think that the effect of our fire hand will be the same, you are very wrong. The whole point of that hand is that we can just scare monsters away or hurt them a little bit, but we cannot kill anyone with that hand. And then there's another reference from Chapter 3. The gun hand has a certain number of charges, and then we have to wait to shoot again. And our fire hand will have the same mechanism, but we won't be able to use it forever because the gas we use is stored in a cylinder that will be attached to our back, and once the gas runs out, our hand will just be useless, and we'll probably throw it away. My personal opinion is that the next hand is the craziest, but also the most interesting concept, and we will talk about the Do hand. It doesn't have any super features like the Fire hand, but its main feature is to split it into several mini hands. And this is much more interesting, because now we will be able to use 3 hands at the same time. And agree that sometimes during the passage of Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, it was just vital for us to save precious time. Imagine that now we will be able to connect to several transmitters at the same time, which will make our progress through Chapter 4 much easier and more interesting. However, it is important to realize that Do hand, like all hands, has its drawbacks. And in the case of the Do hand, it will be useless to us when moving or in situations where we need to turn on or pull something. I think many of you know that thanks to the purple hand, we can jump much higher than the main character can in a normal situation. However, it is not always possible to find the purple marker that makes all this possible. The next hand is no less interesting, the Harpoon hand. This hand itself consists of 2 parts, which we will have to look for in Chapter 4. But believe me, this hand deserves that we tried and found both the hand itself and the harpoon, which will actually be the basis of the action of this hand. What is the main point of this hand? An ordinary hand will be no different from the blue hand and will be the most ordinary part of our body, but once we find the harpoon, it will be much more interesting. Just like the Fire hand, the main part of the harpoon will be attached to the back of our main character, and the tip itself will be attached to the hand. And there are only 2 ways to use this arm. Firstly, its main purpose will be faster movement of our character thanks to the ability to attach to the wall and be held in it. Now we won't need special elevators or devices for our arm to fix itself, and we will be able to climb up. It will be enough to shoot from the harpoon hand, and we will be able to reach any point on the map. I agree that this will improve the game a lot, and of course we could theoretically use this hand as a weapon, but except for a small wound, it is unlikely that it can harm our monsters in any way. And the last hand for today will be the Healing hand, which will be the key to a small change in the mechanics of Poppy Playtime. We all know that we can't just get wounded and die after a failure or too close encounter with a boss. What if in the new chapter we can still get wounded and only after 2-3 wounds we finally die? And because of this innovation and will appear Healing hand, which just like Harpoon hand will consist of 2 parts. Only in the case of the Healing hand, it will be the hand itself and the heart that will heal us. And to find this hand, we will first have to find the key to the healing box, where 2 parts of the new hand will be hidden. However, it will always be necessary to remember the charge of our heart, because once it drops to 0, this hand will simply disappear. Therefore, it is important to always think about it and constantly look for different charging stations to constantly feed energy to our favorite healing hand. Well, of course, 1 healing will be equal to 1 charge, and since our passage was not too easy, I think that the developers will make the maximum number of charges about 4 or maximum 5. Well, that's all for today, dear friends. Don't forget to put likes and subscribe to the channel. See you soon. Bye.